what is in our plan next? We have we have prepared our warm-up session first, so you could have some fun before we get into talking. So grab your phones. My colleague Christians will show you instructions how to do the warm-up session. And afterwards, my colleague Raitis will tell you about our vision of this year.
So, hello, my name is Christians, and I will be the host for this evening activities. And as Anna mentioned, the first thing I would want you is to grab your phones, go to the page menti.com and enter the code you see above of the page, which is 40 24 51 4. So let's do that. And once everyone is there, we can start some activities. And once you have logged in, don't feel shy to press the heart icon so I could see how many of you have managed to actually enter this. Okay. And one thing I wanted to mention is that this activity is sponsored by Beyond UX.digital, a new UX consultancy agency. They were so kind to sponsor us this activity. Thank you. Okay, I see that most of you have joined the activity, so I will start the first one. So the question is, how are you feeling today? Enter in a free form, whether, I know, you feel great, bad, tired, excited. Let us know. Okay. So I can see that we can see that most of you are quite excited and in good mood for today's meetup. So it's amazing to hear that. Let's wait for a few seconds. Maybe the last answers are getting in. If not, then yes, I guess you can also see what is the mood in the room. So great news. Next question. What is your spirit animal? It's a question that, well, probably you have heard sometimes, whether it's a dog, a cat, an elephant. Let us know. What type of animals are we here? I say this is like a never-ending battle between the dogs and the cats. Okay, sand mouse, dragonfly, panda, designer. That's definitely an animal that that we all are here, or most at least. Dolphin, unicorn, honey bear, octopus, well, puma, squirrel, great. Some bunny and snail as well as emojis. Nice. So let's continue with the next one. A question, what is your role? So we could see who are we here and what type of roles within our jobs we are doing. Okay, so I see that, well, majority has answered, then it's others. So probably something that haven't included in this questionnaire, but the other side, yes, obviously user experience designers, user interface designers. We do have some developers, marketing people, company owners, managers, so looking good. So continuing to the next one, name your 3 favorite tools in your work, whether it would be Figma, Mural, Teston, Outlook, Zoom, you name it. Let's see what are the tools that we are using. Okay, seems like Figma, Slack, and Miro is taking the lead. Okay, quite many. Well, coffee is definitely a tool that helps us through the day. Well, as well as Spotify, I suppose. Great. So I think that most of you have entered your, okay, still a few last ones. Super, great to see who we are and what are we using in our lives. So this is actually the end of the first activity, and I would want you to return to the main screen on your desktop, but keep this tab in your phones open because there will be a few more activities during today. Thank you. So.
Yes, thank you, Christianis. And I think now it's time for my colleague Raitis to tell our vision of UX UI Riga Meetup for 2021. Welcome.
All right, so hopefully the sound is okay. Hello, everyone. And before we jump into the speakers, let us quickly introduce who's behind this meetup and what's planned for this year. So hopefully, as you see in the slide, this is the wonderful team that for the past months has been gathering and discussing your feedback from interviews and surveys to understand what kind of content resonates with you. And perhaps you have noticed that from time to time we release the insights in our social networks, but if you haven't, no worries, check out our Facebook and other social networks and see what's there. And I know some may ask, why are you doing this? Why do you invest your personal time into this? And I believe one part is just having fun together and just enjoying each other's presence. And another thing, no less important, is that we believe that by uniting the practicing and emerging designers, we together can make a bigger impact on digital service quality in Riga and beyond. And we hope to achieve this by creating an open and safe space for experimenting and encouraging each other to do wonderful things. So, in short, welcome to this digital product and service design community for designers who practice human-centered values, something that we really believe in. And as promised, as Zana already promised, a very brief outline for this year, and where we hope to bring at least 6 get-together events for you and experiment with different event formats, including workshops. And of course, base all that on the input from you all along the way. So hopefully this becomes a good journey for us together. Let's see how it goes. And hope this illustrates, at least briefly, what we are planning to do this year and why we do this. So, Susanne, what's next for us today?
All right, thank you so much, Raitis, for telling the vision of 2021 for us. We hope that this community really grows bigger as it is now, and after a year we could count like so many things that we have achieved this year. Okay, I think you actually cannot wait to hear our speakers. So can you see my screen? I think you can, yeah. Yes, so our speakers. So we have 2 speakers for today, and we have Irina as the first speaker of today. Irina is a senior user experience researcher at Prezi, and in her talk we will hear about remote workshop magic and how she does that in Prezi. And everyone is welcome right now during the speech to write your questions in the comments section. And after her talk, I will ask all those questions to her, so you can hear all answers to your questions. So now I'm asking Irina to come to the stage, turn on your presentation, and we cannot wait to hear your speech.
Yeah, thank you. So before I start, I would like to ask everyone to pin my video or to switch to the speaker mode, because my presentation will be in my video, basically, where you see myself. So make sure that you did this just to see myself. And yeah, before I start, I just also wanted to say that what I will show today is not what I basically organized, but with the force of my colleagues, and I'm not taking credits of this nice case study which I will show you today. But yeah, this presentation will basically be combination of some 2020 product story, some nice rituals of Prezi design department, which is like mini workshops, and one case study of a great, amazing workshop that we did last year. And I just really wanted to share it with our UX UI community. So to start, I want to give just a brief, fast introduction on who I am and what I do. Basically, yes, I'm user experience researcher. I have a lot of past experience with the background in graphic, web design, art direction, and product design. And on the picture, me and my daughter, which I also believe is the greatest thing I created, basically. And so I started to work in Infogram and ended up in Prezi. So for you who doesn't know, Infogram is a data visualization tool. We have 5.2 million users, maybe even more now. And we have a bunch of different clients as newsrooms, EDU people, and universities and others. And 3 years ago, of course, Infogram became a part of the big Prezi family, and we just are now all together working in remote situation. So let's get back to 2020, and I still feel 2020 lasts even in this year. So yeah, what it meant from the product standpoint, basically. Starting 2020, we were entering this year with the platform vision. We just launched a new Prezi video product. We integrated Prezi design. We have this bunch of nice tools for user to offer. And all these products are focusing on letting person be the perfect presenter in front of huge amount of people in the conferences, selling the good products in the meeting with clients. But as we know, basically year ended up in being remote, starting from spring all over the world. And teachers, EDU, the biggest segment, basically, were pushed to use Zoom and other platforms to make the lessons. And their lessons doesn't look like this on this picture. They looked mostly like that. So, and this is the main struggle where teachers were facing. And we were there basically with a nice tool actually in the pocket to help them. So we offered them, we were lucky to have this tool before the pandemic because it had a perfect fit for these audiences who had to communicate remotely with more engaging and effective ways. But also, not only product changed. Of course, we had the changes on the team side, on internal side, because of this switch. So year started perfectly. We have celebrated a company birthday. We had a shadow day or Enu Diena in Latvia. We had a bunch of school people, which currently seems like something unreal. I had myself several purposes. I wanted to run marathon in spring, and I was really preparing for that. But yeah, as we know, the reality was different. So what we've got basically. So in this remote work situation, we faced different challenges. So there was no small talk near coffee machine, online meeting fatigue, less transparency of and information channels, fun stories, informal activities disappeared because you need to face people only if you need something to discuss with them related to work, and its inability to fill the room. And yeah, our calendar started to fill in really critically. You just have the Zoom fatigue and enormous amount of meetings. It's basically a screenshot of my calendar where you need to book your lunch break, not people to make meetings on that time. And yeah, and the workshops, of course, from real ones moved to the virtual space. And as a result, Prezi decided to do a step ahead and became a remote first company. Basically, we decided it doesn't seem to end soon. And we saw that it actually works pretty well, even if we had this panic mode in the beginning when you basically don't know how to adapt to this remote situation. As a result, you adapt to this, and overall our audience is remote too, and we need to understand their struggles. So Prezi decided to go to remote first company even after the pandemic. So with that, I would like to slightly switch to what are our design and UX research rituals we do in this remote work setup. So what do we do to keep the contact, to make these informal discussions around, and to help keep this transparency among the teams that exist in Prezi? So there is a bunch of activities I will go through just to take you to give you a picture how it works. So first, really important, as we also did today, icebreakers. amazing thing. And even it was set up as one of the values from our management, like each average, not the small one-to-one meetings, but around like at least 3-4 participants should start with some kind of icebreaker, just because we need a bit of personal touch in our work routine. And I will show you. So here, this icebreakers which I show is for designers. For example, we start our collaboration in Figma, and we start with basically sketching. Each of us sketches a small image during 1 minute. So imagine waking up on the next day after Halloween and realize there are no internet or any high tech on this planet anymore. What profession you would pursue in your remaining life? And each of us had like 1 minute to sketch up really quickly what would be our like profession. So like one of this type of activities. Another one, like you won the lottery, what's the first thing you would buy? And yeah, everyone was sharing. It's really easy practical task. Or if you would eat only one fruit all your life, what fruit it would be? So but it gives you like opportunity to have these fun discussions and like spend I don't know 5-10 minutes just to have this, and you get to know people actually in those. Another activity is design critiques. So in our company, if you have these cross-functional teams, it's important to have this overall picture on what's happening on design department. And we have this each week we have a specific slot where each designer or researcher can bring something on discussion and collect the feedback from all designers from all the teams. And this is where you can get some other contexts from other activities happening on the product, maybe some further developments. Something is the low fidelity, high fidelity, and everyone is able to provide basically a feedback, which is also cool, I think. Another activity, design studios. This is more workshop-like activity. You can also summon designers to help you figure out a solution for some of the problems. Basically, designer who wants ideas and help to find solution comes to this meeting basically, and others are start brainstorming visually, providing some like ideas around. And it's up to organizer to decide what to do with all these ideas. So, but it's basically done just to help creative juices going and flowing. Another interesting practice that we do, like each 5th week within the company, each department can do strategic sprint. What does it mean? It means that department can decide what outside the work actual plans and schedules and tasks each department would like to do. Engineers doing some maintenance job, or like updating something. And what about designers? We do maintenance work as well. And also sometimes we are creating some concepts for our product. So we are free to brainstorm and do different crazy stuff. Dividing, it's like a hackathon in the week period, which basically starts with retro. And yeah, we go like doing crazy stuff, and then some of them actually goes to reality. Design stand-ups, pretty like clear. We don't have stand-ups only in the.
No, we can't see the slides. Yeah.
If you
Oh.
have any.
Oh. Is it a long time you don't see
No,
the
no, just
slides?
around
No,
3
it's not
minutes
a
or
long time,
something.
just a few.
Just a few.
Okay.
minutes.
It's weird. I will try to. Oh, now you see.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thanks for notifying. I guess connection was lost. Okay, so yeah, basically design stand-ups. Yeah, I guess pretty basic, but it's good that we have those each morning during the week, not in cross-functional teams, but as a department as well. So we are syncing among designers, and they usually also start really informally. We discuss like different topics and then get down to earth and say what are the plans for the day. And another one, which is not happening pretty often, but time to time it's happened. We call it design ping pong. Basically, when some of designers is really like thinking hard how to solve it, UI problem, and then other designers just join this meeting, help them out, thinking around different versions, and basically help to bring this designer up and give him like some thoughts around how to do that, like really designish practical event to do the work. So yeah, shortly, it's around like rituals that we do in Prezi to keep this like flow and not losing the contact around what's happening in the company, in the teams, and so on. And it's like some of them look like workshops, and yeah, you somehow manage to get this like real life feeling and conversations if you have this like a right mood set in the beginning of the meeting. And yeah, and the next topic I would like to share with you. So in the last year, we had a really good extensive remote workshop. So it was related to our main user persona workshop. So we decided to figure out, we know like teachers are heavily in trouble in remote setup, and we know like our solution can actually help them. And to understand what are the pains and problems of this specific audience, we had to build up like a really good empathy and understanding, like what teachers are actually feeling in these times. And this workshop was about creating a teacher persona. It was, I would say it was even like a secondary goal. The main goal was to build up the empathy among the team, because if we're building for teachers, we need to know them really well, because not all of us really know what the teachers do. And yeah, and it would help to bring the empathy to the teams, and then actually make the right decisions within the teams. As I said, I'm not taking credits for this workshop. This two amazing ladies was organizing it. It's a Vera UX researcher, and Zuzanna is a product designer, and they closely work with this video product. And yeah, everything that I will show, just a small part where I jumped in and helped a bit, but I mostly was a participator. So yeah, they prepared everything. So before this workshop, what was necessary? To have interviews with teachers who is not using Prezi, to prepare specific interviews we would go through during the workshop. Uh, they also had basically to prepare some of the use cases, what teachers basically do with our product, make a schedule, plan every activity, get facilitators on board, and lots of things. So for you to know, this workshop took 4 days. It's not like a 1-day session. And we were able to do that actually just because of our this strategic 5-week activities that we have in the company. So within this strategic sprint, we had this workshop and have this 4 days to do so. And what was the schedule? So we started with the lightning talks from around the company, and each of us, several of stakeholders basically shared what they already know about the teachers, what data do we have, and so on. Then on the second day, we were building the empathy, watching through the interviews with the teachers. On the third day, we created personas by specific templates. And on the fourth day, there was the like ideation, where we took those personas and tried to go like basically and see what are the solutions for those people. How many minutes do I have, Elena? Just to take, to know, be aware of time. I know we started a bit later.
Yes, Madre, could you please help with this?
Just so I plan.
Yeah, some 10 minutes. So
10 minutes. Okay, I see. So yes, I will just show a couple of course, we started with the icebreaker. So each day of the workshop was started with icebreaker just to set the mood. On this picture, it's difficult to see what's written, but basically there is we used Whimsical for workshop activity, and each person with its cursor basically showed to which department it belongs. We have lots of product designers. You see, it's the purple one, and there are project managers, even developers and researchers. Then there was, have you ever created persona? Yes and no. This like pink and brown circles. And do you, how good you know like teachers? And this is a scale, like nope at all, or like how often do you teach, the question was. And yeah, when we see that the experience is pretty different. And of course we measured energy levels with these nice batteries in the start of the each day, so people were just identifying where they are. So first day, lightning talks. Lightning talks, as I said, it's a presentation from the different people within the company who were basically sharing some piece of knowledge around the teachers. And other people who was participating in the workshop, there was a bunch of those, like 20 people who were there, had to make a notes during the listening this lightning talk. So they should write what made them sad, what made them inspired or surprised. And then they were able to share and discuss. So it was like discovery of what we actually know and what made us anyway be surprised. And all participants in the workshop were divided in different like educational group. One was the primary school, middle school, and the high school. And each of the groups has to like narrow down insights that they need to keep in mind about these lightning talks. So it was the one like point where we were like summarizing what we heard during the day one. During the day two, we had to actually listen to the user interview. And this was nice because we could do this async on our own. We were given 1 hour to go through the interview where the certain teacher, primary, middle, or high school, were talking and telling about their routine within in the pandemic, how their work changed, and so on. And during the listening, the interview, each of us basically filled out the empathy map. We wrote what the participants say, do, see, hear, and so on. And we had to watch like 2 videos. Each group watched 2 videos of specific teacher, like primary or secondary. And another interesting activity that we had, which is also was possible, like really live through this remote teacher situation. Some of us had activity within Google Classroom and some of us within the MS Teams. And we basically were acting like real teachers. We had a specific task: create a class, make a quiz, and make marks for your children. And some of the group were playing teacher and other playing children. And we had to do this activity to understand what actually is to like creating class in these systems. Third day was pretty straightforward. I guess I won't go in much details because there is a lot, but we were basically given a frame of digital literacy of teachers before we started to create personas. There was defined like this teacher most likely has a smartphone and uses just a few apps and don't understand difference between SMS or chat apps. So we had some kind of constraints what person will be like. And within these constraints, we basically filled out some usual, really basic persona template with possibility each of us to create a story behind the teachers. And using this persona template, we also defined how might we questions in terms of how might we help this specific teacher. Okay, I will try to jump really quickly to yes, and on the fourth day, it was the ideation part, where also we had like a semi-remote, semi-real activity. We tried to answer to this design challenge, how might we, in the worst possible ideal way, just to keep our minds creative. And each of us tried to give a most worst idea. And then we started to do like the classic crazy eights. You can see them here, and just to come up with like 8 ideas. And the last activity, I just want to share it because it's really cool, I think. Each of our crazy eights most voted idea, we added in this specific template, and we had to build upon of our best idea. And we switched the group. So another participant had to take this idea and make it even extreme with the second iteration. And the third participant taking up on this idea tried to break it. So why this idea wouldn't work and list it. And the fourth participant taking up on this tried to fix these broken parts. So we made this multi-gradual, basically going through the ideas within our group. And yeah, basically to conclude, in this workshop, there was gained amazing deep empathy through the teachers and how they feel. And we saw the interviews, we saw the environment when they work, we saw the use cases and things they do. So it was amazing, and we were really sure that each one participant who was on this workshop, they return to their teams and they will be like completely empathized with the problems. And we understood the context, and we were like logically proved the needs of improvements in our product. And yeah, there was lots of passion to discover more. And as you see from this picture, this is what you want to do after the workshop with the teacher. So hugs and give a prize. This was the top voted things. Okay, so yeah, I have 2 minutes, I know. I have 2 minutes. Yeah, so briefly go through some of the key points. When you have this remote work and remote workshops and remote communication with designers and your team and brainstorming, always have time for fun. Don't be really serious when you start the meeting. Keep the this nice social contact with the team. Make async activities. We know like we have a full calendars of things. Embrace the async as well. Like try to combine async activities and remote live activities when you do the workshops. Do lots of breaks in the long workshops. Don't make people sit on Zoom long, several hours. Go to interviews if you need to empathize people. So it's good, and it always works. It always works. Make acting. Try to live through the situation of a user. It's really fun and it works. Make sure you have facilitator in each group when you have remote session. So it's really important. Measure energy level. It's difficult to do in remote situation than in live setup, and collect feedback afterwards. So it's all about feedback, you know, when you are UXer. And meetingless Wednesdays, some nice advice. It's still not work in our company, but we try. We will push for that. So maybe it will work for you and you will enjoy it. Turn off camera for some meetings. It would help you to relax a bit. And snapcam filters is a thing. So you see us, we are all anime people, and this meeting makes more fun, of course, for not so serious meeting. Yeah, my last slide. As you know, we are hiring in Prezi. We need 3 super nice product UX UI designers. So ask me, ping me, screenshot this link, AUs, and so on. Or yeah, you can just reach out to me. This is it. I'm done. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Irina. That was a wonderful, wonderful speech. So many tips. I bet everyone could take something with you. I surely can. Like so many new information. Like at first, I do have like some icebreakers on my meetings as well, but you kind of gave me a whole new perspective what else can be in in icebreaker meetings.
Yeah, it's actually for us was even a must. It was set in our this KPIs, or yeah, it was set as a goal. We need to have this like activities in like for each meeting. So yeah, that makes sense.
Absolutely. All right, we have 10 minutes of questions to you. We have some questions from the chat related to icebreakers and then some processes that you go through. So I will just ask you some questions and then you answer to me. If we will have some time, then someone could also raise a hand and ask a question directly to you. But if we run out of the time, then you will have a chance to ask questions after in the networking session.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so once we are on these icebreaker questions, so the first question is, how much time and energy do you actually spend on the office on creating these icebreaker activities?
It's actually super easy. So if it's something you would do like each meeting, as you have like weekly meetings and you do the icebreakers, it just we had figured out one specific structure which works all the time. Just draw something. So give a small artboard for each participant and ask a question and give a 1 minute to do the drawing. And then, yeah, it's so basic. You just change a question and you have an icebreaker for each of the events. And yeah, it can be everything. We had the fun ones like, what items will you took on this like island where nobody is, like 3 items with you, what it would be? And everyone was like really scary stuff, like a knife and a shotgun, just if everything goes really bad, or I don't know, like it was fun because you get to know person, because for some of our colleagues you met only remotely because they joined recently, so it's a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I truly agree with you that those things, like you would never ask a person like face to face, but kind of things like you get to know person like in a whole another level, I would say.
yeah, that's true.
All right, our next question is from Christian. You mentioned Prezi went remote first. What do you think will happen after everything goes back to normal? Will people go back to office or continue working from home?
Mm-hmm. What we basically noticed, and what I also hear from other companies, that they had this kind of fear to have this remote ability because they thought workers won't be so much productive. But remote situation showed, and I guess it's not the right for every company. each company should like decide on their own. But on our side, we saw that our efficiency didn't lower, and we see like some of the people really enjoy remote. It's not for everyone. I'm also one of the social persons, and I was missing office a lot, and my lovely developer guys as well. That's why like it was really painful, but somehow, yes, we still have this ability to keep the office as a hub. So if you need and want to have the office environment, you can agree to meet in the office for some time, for some days. But yeah, I guess the efficiency of the company, this is the main reason to switch, and how workers are ready. For on our side, this was mostly like appreciated as a possibility.
Great. I could actually relate that at first going remote, it was hard for me as well. And in my mind, I put myself like, how I will ever gonna do this. But then you get used to it, and you kind of feel like it's new normal, I would say.
Yeah. Important to have a good workplace at home.
Absolutely.
I brought a good table, and now I'm like, I fixed everything. So you know.
Absolutely. Good work conditions is
Yeah.
definitely needed also at home.
Mhm.
We actually had a discussion in the chat with several people about your wonderful presentations that you had on you. Like, I will just combine two questions together. Like, what would be the learning curve to create such a presentation in maybe our next event or something like? How do you feel like is it easy to do it or not really?
Yeah, for me, I said what I showed today, it was a pretty advanced from what like a standard product like with low learning curve offers. But I would say just to show up several slides and make them transition without this multi layers and hierarchy, it would be pretty easy. You can try for free on press.com. Didn't want to do the advertisement, but yeah, just you can do really quickly simple stuff there. So yeah.
Okay, we will definitely try that out, and perhaps a next meetup. You never know. You never know.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's switch to your second part of the presentation, where you talked about the research. We have a question from Christian: is how do you choose people who should participate in those workshops which you handled?
Yeah, usually we make sure it's a really like diverse team. I mean, from different teams and from different roles. There should be also developers as well. PMs is the must because they are the key persons from each of the teams. But yeah, I guess main principle, we are not actually like pushing everyone to participate, and we have to make sure this workshop actually brings the value to the current like company interests and strategy. That's why those people are interested in joining. Because they want to know this specific segment. And yeah, because we was in situation, we knew the segment, how they feel like in classical conditions, let's say. And then we have figured out like, oh, but we actually don't know what are their struggles in these times. Yes, and we had to basically redo the thing. We had a lot of personas like for the Prezi, like this platform product, but for this specific case, yeah, we had to start all over from some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take our last question because we are running out of time in this QA session. The remaining questions then could be answered on the networking, which we'll introduce later. So the last question is from Edmonds. Thank you for a great presentation first. What motivates people to participate in workshops and user tests? I would like to understand your techniques for gathering people for such kind of tests.
I The answer is pretty simple. We are paying them. So this is the motivation. And of course, if you want to get a good level of participant, if you're interested in a salesperson from a big company, they won't do that for free. They won't talk with you, and like you need somehow like at least a bit of motivation for them. And we experimenting with different gift cards from different services. Most of the time it's like Amazon gift cards, and the amount of this basically depends on the time of the session and the level of participants. So what is the study? Of course, like a student and teacher, it might be not relevant as enterprise, like a CEO level person. So yeah, for free, it's sometimes it also works because like if you don't need some really specific person, and you are okay with just everyone who presents remotely, you can also find this type of segment even among your like friends who is not like exactly a Prezi user. Yeah, but most of the time it's hard because it's hard. That's why, basically.
Yeah, of course. Well, you do need to get some kind of like motivation and like, why do I need this, and like why do I need to share my knowledge and my insights? Like,
yeah,
oh,
it's an
people want to get something.
hour of your time in the calendar full of Zoom meetings. So
Of course, of
it's
course.
crazy.
Absolutely. All right, we have run out of the time. So as I said, the remaining questions could be answered later in networking session. But now, Irina, I really would like to say thank you for your amazing presentation. Thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome.
It was really nice to hear your experience, and yeah, it was great. I definitely will take something with me after this evening.
Yeah, I'm happy.
All right, let's take a break. As you said, we need to have some breaks, but we have creative breaks in this meetup. So I'm asking Christianis to start up activity for 5 minutes, and then we will go back to our second speaker.
Hello. So for this activity, I would like you to return to your mobile devices, and if you already did the first activity. If for some reason it has been closed, so feel free just to enter again the menti.com and the code you see above. And yeah, once will be here, I will start the activity, which will be user experience quiz. And one thing to notice is that the faster correct answers get more points. So we'll have a small competition to test our knowledge about user experience related topics. Okay. So let's wait a few more seconds as I see some more people are joining in. And you will be asked to enter your name, so feel free to enter whatever you like. So we are not, how you say, testing you specifically. Consider this more as a fun activity. Okay, so let's begin. So we are all here. Let's start. So the recommended dimensions for touch targets. Let's see. Last answers flying in. 10 seconds. So see that majority of you chose the right answer. So that's nice to see. Let's see the results. How did it go with time? So quite close, but the first place now is for the penguin. Second one goes to Zan, third Rolands, and so on. So let's continue to the question 2. Okay, question. Yeah. What is a tree map? A method to evaluate an information architecture, a visualization of any hierarchical data, a visual representation of the information architecture of a site, or a way of organizing different types of maps, for example, customer journey maps, experience maps, into a single visual representation. So, what is a tree map? Last 10 seconds. Yes. And again, majority have chosen the correct answer. Let's see how this changes the overall result of players. So for this one, Nick has chosen it fastest, following by Wow and the lead. Okay, let's continue. Question 3, and this will be the last one for this activity. Which of the following is most likely not to be a mobile microsession? Reading and dismissing a notification, glancing at the phone to get the time, checking your calendar for today, or reading a movie review and buying movie tickets. Which of the following is most likely not to be a mobile microsession? Last 10 seconds. Yes, reading a movie review and buying movie tickets is not a mobile microsession. So let's see how this affected our points and who are the winners of this activity and how it changed the overall count. Congratulations, Lena with the has gotten the first place by answering the questions in the fastest time. Thank you very much for this activity, and let's continue to the, one thing before going back to the main screen. If you want to test your knowledge further, you can go to the Nielsen Norman Group articles and try out the quiz where there's more questions to answer and test your knowledge and the user experience related questions. So let's return to the main screen. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Christian, for a quiz that really tested our knowledge. Yeah, as he mentioned, you can go and do full quiz on Nielsen Norman Group page. But I bet that our second speaker cannot wait to start talking. So our second speaker is Rostislav. He's a design researcher at Idea Partners and founder of LearnBy. And on his today's talk, we will hear how and why you should involve clients in the design process. And as a reminder, you can ask questions in the chat section, and we will ask those after the talk to the speaker. So Rostislav, welcome. Stage is yours.
Hey everybody. Can you all see my calculator?
Yes.
Yeah, we can see your presentation, yeah.
Also trying to present. Also, by the way, here is the link to the chat. Where do I find the chat? For anybody who can't see, that's the presentation that you can also kind of see afterwards. Perfect. So my name is Rostislav. Essentially I'm a design researcher. I'm from New York. I grew up in New York City, and I was in Latvia 4 years ago. Currently, I'm now in Barcelona. I do a lot of things from UX research to lately a lot of software development, as I'm kind of learning to code and build my own tool. And then more recently, I'm working with this amazing group of people at Idea Partners. And so we're doing agency work, basically redesigns, product designs, website, mobile redesigns, all that kind of fun stuff. And so today what I'm going to talk about is essentially a deep dive into one of the methods that we kind of use basically for problem framing. It's what I believe is the most important part of any design process, is literally how you started and how you set yourself up for success, how much of it you understand. And I'll talk about how we actually did it through a real project most recently. And and essentially go in. So feel free to ask questions. I will try to fit it in and share what I know. Perfect. So basically what I'm going to talk about is this method that's called deconstruction. And it actually comes from the Delft Design University. They're the ones that coined it. And you can read more about it at this link over here. But it essentially is a process for how to understand any problem framing process. And basically, it's actually a model of the whole design process, right? But before I kind of go into a little bit more details about actually what that is, I think one of the important things is to kind of establish vocabulary. And so what is design? And when I'm using the word design, it means essentially something different than a lot of the other meanings that we see on the kind of web. And so most famously, there's this really smart guy. His name is Herbert Simon. And he essentially coined this phrase in this book called The Science of Design, which he said, everyone designs who devises courses of action aimed at changing existing situations into preferred ones. Well, said much simpler than that, it basically means changing A into B, right? And A being something that exists now, and B actually being something that somebody wants instead, right? And something that really good designers do is they actually spend a good amount of time understanding A, right? So what is the actual situation that we're working with? What is this thing that we're redesigning or maybe designing for the first time, or the problem area? And what are the goals, right? What are the things that we want to do, right? So good designers spend a lot of time actually trying to understand both of these things, really even before they start actually putting ideas down on paper or start actually designing, right? It's all of this kind of prep work. And all of that essentially is problem framing, right? So it's looking at what exists, what's there, how does it work, why is it there in the first place, and why does it work in that particular way? And then also, where are we going, right? What's the goal? Why is it necessary? What should it achieve? And how should it work? Right, so this is the fact. A is what exists, where we're going is B, right? And that's when we come back to deconstruction and this kind of method from vision and product design. And so what you can actually see here is pretty much the exact same A. A over here on this left side, this is your existing product, your existing situation that you're designing, and you're essentially moving in these levels as you deconstruct it. And then you enter into the actual design process where you're then starting to reconstruct something, right? So this is all very sciencey and kind of academic-y stuff, and it probably seems like why, you know? But in reality, as a mental model, this is one of the most useful kind of tools, right, for beginning to understand how to actually approach, how to think about design, and how to see this as a process in your head. So something that you can kind of see over here is that it actually works in 3 levels. From the bottom, you have the what level, which is at the level of products, right? So this is what we can see, what we can touch, things that we can describe, and things that we can observe directly. At the middle, you then get into the human product relation, as they call it, right? So this is the interaction. This is how this thing works. It's how something makes us feel, how we use it. And then finally, once you move past the interaction, you get into the why level, or what they call the context, right? So this is, why does it work in this way? Why does it work at all? Why is it here in the first place? You know, what are the situational factors that cause this thing to be in existence, right? And so you move from whatever your existing situation is, and you break it down by saying, first of all, what do I see? Understanding how does it work? And then understanding why is it supposed to be in this kind of a way. And then when you start redesigning, you're essentially going then in the opposite direction in this cycle. Okay, cool, it works this way now because of all of these factors, but you know, times have changed, there's new trends going on, so we want it to work in new ways. We have new context, we have new whys, right? We also want new interactions, we want to imbue new emotions into this experience. And then finally, we get to the actual designing of the product, right? Which comes at the very end. So you got A and then B, right? And then, so something to understand is that this whole process of deconstruction and reconstruction is something that we're actually doing all the time, right? Designers are doing this, just they're not always doing it consciously and purposefully, right? This is the difference. Every time you come and you say, hey, this looks bad, and then you come and you redesign something, maybe using the latest trends, the latest animations, you know, now everything is all kind of like shapes all around and weird things, right? That's a new why, that's a new context factor, right? That every time that you're saying, oh, now we need to make TikTok videos, or now we need to kind of make it very mobile friendly or very much visuals, videos, right? Again, that's a context factor, right? Times have changed. So now we're redesigning. You might still be solving the exact same thing, but now you're doing it in a different way. So the difference is, are you doing it consciously or are you doing it unconsciously, right? And if you're doing it purposefully, then you're going through these levels, really thinking, hey, why is this the way that it is? How can I make it be this new way? So all of that was kind of just nice and theoretic, but what does it actually look like in a real life example? And this is not the case study that we're going on. This is still just a simple kind of run through, right? So let's look at deconstruction really quickly. In this case, we're going to look at this pediatric dental office, right? So we're going to run through the method of actually what do we see, how it works, and why it is the way that it is, just from this one image. So one of the first things is we talk about the what level, right? So looking at this pediatric office, it's a dental office for kids. Well, we see chairs, right? We see that it's a waiting room, right? There's pictures on the wall, things to look at. We see that there's a reception desk with a computer, right? Probably there's things and activities over here, right? It looks like there's activities for kids to play with, different kinds of toys, right? These are all the things that we can just see, right? This is the what. If you're talking about a phone, you're also talking about its weight, you're talking about the glass screen, you're talking about any buttons that it has, right? Things that you can just basically describe. Then we move to the how level, right? So how does it work? How does it make people feel? Well, clearly this room is used. People are waiting here. They're waiting in groups, right? Kids, when they're sitting here, they're looking around at all of those images. They're meant to be looked at. They're meant to be visually engaging, right? You're also waiting for your appointment. The room seems like it's fun, right? It seems like it's giving this feeling of fun. And it seems like it's being kind of like inviting, right? Like, hey, this is such a cool, fun place, right? So then when you get to the why level, this is the next thing. Well, why is this room the way that it is? Now, and there's a lot of things that we know, right? We know that dentists can be scary places, especially for little kids. You're coming in, you know, there's like possibly needles, there's shots that are going in, right? Maybe you're coming in and your kid's in pain, he's scared. Maybe you haven't slept all night because there's like this kind of crazy toothache. So parents are anxious and nervous. We also know that for doctors, this is a business, right? They need to kind of actually see a lot of patients, right? If everything takes forever, then they're not actually earning enough money. So there's a lot of things that we know, and we can surmise that the reason that this room is the way that it is probably for some of these context factors, right? To make visiting the dentist fun and less scary, to calm kids down so that they can actually get treatment, right? To help parents distract children from their pain. You can totally imagine a kid who's like got a toothache and the mom's like, hey, look at that crocodile, look how happy he is. And the kid's all of a sudden distracted, right? Like this room helps parents accomplish those kinds of goals. And we can also imagine that it helps doctors to see more patients and communicate, right? Because if the kids are having fun, they're also cooperating, right? They're not fighting the doctor, they're not crying, you're not forcing, you know? The kids are actually wanting to participate because they're in a good, fun mood, right? So this is the why level. This is why this room is the way that it is, right? So we just went and we deconstructed it, right? We went from just what we saw to kind of understanding how it works, how it makes us feel, to understanding what are the reasons why it has to be in this kind of a way. Now, what we just talked about was at the realm of service design, right? You've got doctors, staff, parents, kids, right? And they've got pains, they've got goals, they've got needs, right? This was service. Visiting the dentist is a service. But you can imagine that in software or apps, it's actually the exact same thing. It doesn't matter if you're talking about a service or if you're talking about a website or a mobile app, you still have something that was designed in a particular way to accomplish the goals of some involved parties, right? Why was it involved? Why was it designed in this way? What were those goals? How is it supposed to work? What were the feelings that the designers and the clients wanted to put into this, right? So it's the same, right? It's basically no difference. I mean, there is a difference, but still, right? And so all of this, right? A lot of what we just talked about, especially towards the end, once we get past what you can actually just see and describe, were a lot of assumptions, right? So I filled in that story for you guys through my own past knowledge, things that I know, but realistically, all of that information about how it works, how it functions, how people feel, how parents are using that space with their children, all of that is the product of discovery research, right? You're challenging your assumptions. This photo of this bear is to remind you that you have to go out into the wild, right? You actually have to go and start looking at these spaces, spending time in this problem area, right? Because any real deconstruction is going to come from actual observation, from actual interviews, not just from me looking at a picture and imagining why things are the way that they are. But with kind of doing this discovery research, one thing that often comes up is that as designers are kind of going through it, they have problems, right? They're finding problems and opportunities, right? We're just wired that way. We can't not see things that are broken and be like, oh my God, that's bad. That should be like this. Oh, that's awful. Oh my God, I know how to fix that. That needs to be like this. My wife complains all the time when we're like driving, because I'm complaining about everything all the time. I'm saying, hey, that's broken. That's stupid. Why does it have to be like that? And she's like, you're always complaining. I'm like, no, I'm seeing problems that need to be fixed, right? It's a muscle that designers have. Like, we can't not see problems and opportunities. But this brings me to the next point, right? That there's a misconception, right? Design is not actually problem solving, right? What design actually is change making, right? So what do I mean by that, right? So you can imagine that you have the most beautiful, like you get a project to redesign kind of like an application, and you take all like of the latest technology, you make it beautiful, like it works, all of these animations, all of these fancy things. But then the client only has 3 developers. All 3 of them are also working on mission critical things for the actual software. Will they even be able to pull away the team in order to design this amazingly beautiful, wonderful, gorgeous thing that you as a designer made? Well, probably not, right? They can't justify it, the time that they would spend from the mission critical to make this. So it doesn't matter how great something is, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit, right? So this is one of the things. There's limitations kind of in the world, right? And then the other thing is that there's actually resistance, right? So oftentimes as a designer, you'll come in and, you'll get this project, you'll come up with all of this, the new flows, the new experiences, new interactions. You'll say, oh, this was bad. We changed this, and you give it, and then you get lots of pushback. The team says, oh, well, we don't really like it. That was kind of bad. You know what, we need to bring, this is great, but we need to add all of those other sections back in, the ones that you took out because they were like really important. Those were really working, right? You're getting pushback, right? And because oftentimes it doesn't matter how ugly something is if it works, right? And if people love it. And so this is something that we often forget, right? It's so easy for us to see all of the things that are broken. What's hard is understanding how to actually get them unbroken, right? And it's never just the case of saying, hey, wow, Mr. Client, that's complete shit. Here's a list of 37 things wrong with your product and my solutions for you. Boom, here you go, here's the bill, right? Like, that'll never work, right? And the reason that'll never work is because if you want to get people to shut down, you give them tons of shit feedback, right? After a certain point, once we hear the first 3 problems, and you guys know this, right? Somebody comes up to your desk and starts critiquing something that you're doing. After like the first 3 negative comments, you're just like, okay, this person doesn't know what he's saying. This is bullshit. I don't agree. Where's this feedback even coming from, right? It doesn't work, right? And one of the things that we as designers forget is that although our job ends at the kind of before implementation, right? We hand over all of our files, we hand over the things, and then we kind of expect like, boom, I've done such an amazing job. It looks so good. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. Everybody's going to love it, and then it never actually gets implemented, right? Or it never gets made. I've been part of so many conversations hearing designers bitch about, finally something gets released and it's like, that's not what I designed. Didn't they see like in my Figma files that I had all of this thing? And simultaneously, I've been witness to so many conversations where developers are just like, do they even understand how this product is coded? Do they even understand how it works? Right? Because it's this like miscommunication. Designers think that it's just enough to make something work, to say how to fix something and hand it over, right? But what I'm trying to say is that that's not enough, right? So this is where we get to that, again, design is not problem solving. Design is actually about change making, right? What we need to do is not only help clients understand what needs to change and how, but we need to ensure that they actually want to change things too, right? We want people to get excited, right? We want them to say, when we hand over and say, hey, this was the problem space, this was the problem we were trying to solve, and this is our solution, we want them to say, hell yeah, let's do it, right? Like, let's go. Like, I want it. And so one of the ways in which to really do that is to ensure that people actually have ownership over this final thing, right? So if people, if the team, if the client, if the developers feel like this is a solution that's also theirs, right? Not just some outside designer who came in and told them what to fix, right? Not just some even designer from the same company in the team who just, completely shat on all of their past work, right? But we want to feel that it's ours, right? We want to feel that it belongs to us, that we understand it, and we understand, and it understands us, right? Then people can get excited behind those changes. So how do you give ownership? And that's where we get to the next thing, which is participatory design, right? So you want to work actually with clients, and I'm gonna, and if you're involving them in this design process, they're with you every step of the way. They understand what the problem, they're understanding how we're breaking down the problem, right? They're understanding the solution, they're generating ideas with you, we're riffing together. And then finally, when it gets to that point where you're creating, they're like, hey, I see that idea that I threw out over there, I see where it is. The reason that we have to change all of these things, I understand because I was there. I helped kind of figure out why it was broken, right? So now, how do you actually do participatory design? And so one of the things to kind of figure out is that when you're doing it, this is the switch, right? You're helping clients realize their vision instead of actually imposing your vision on them. Right, so designers are actually taking a step back. I know it's hard for our egos sometimes because we believe we are amazing and we have all the answers, but you step back and you basically say, how can I use my skills to help other people realize their vision? How can I help them understand this problem? How can I pick and choose kind of what are all the important things, right? So that was all the theory, and now I'll just kind of quickly walk you guys through how we actually did it with a recent project. I can't say who the client was because the project's actually still ongoing and there's a lot of things that unfortunately I can't show. Hopefully sometime soon, this will be a real thing and then I'll be able to say, hey, I did that, like with our team. But essentially it's an e-commerce platform, a new one that's kind of launching. And I'll show you basically how we involve the clients through this process of deconstruction, right? Which is the goal, right? I think that even this very process of going through that whole step of the problem framing with the client also massively helps to finally achieve the better results. Okay, so deconstructing an existing website. This was an in-person session, and then all of the data was kind of backed up in Miro. Miro is one of my favorite tools specifically for this. You can have all of the actual like Post-it note workshops and everything beautiful and amazing. And then you can have this digital record, right? Where you just snap photos and you throw them in or you import things. But in this case, no longer kind of a doctor's office, but actually redesigning the actual like a website and getting ready to launch the platform. And I see that I'm already a little over 20 minutes, so I will try to get it going. The model of deconstruction, it's really just a mental model, right? You don't have to actually go through those exact same questions. What's important is that you are kind of moving yourself and your analysis through this loop, right? Through this what level to the how level to the why level, right? We always want to understand why. So in kind of figuring out how to redesign this website, these were the kind of questions that we started with, right? So what is this thing that we see? What is it for, right? Who is it for? And then what was the goal? What was the goal that the client was trying to actually achieve? And the way that it looked was really just like this. So I've essentially hidden the website over here, but we printed out super large the actual existing client websites. And then we literally went through section by section, frame by frame, saying, hey, why is this here? What's the point of it, right? Going through, answering all of those questions. You can see that they're kind of all over here color-coded. Understanding, okay, boom, there was the logo. What was the point of the logo? Why is it here in the first place? It gets really nitty gritty, super, super detailed. But this whole conversation of moving from let's just talk about this thing that we see and let's essentially figure out how does it work? What's the point of it? Why is it there? Who is it for, right? Which of your website visitors, which customer were you aiming this for? And what was your goal? Why did you guys want to put this here? This is a really important conversation to have because as designers, I think one of the things that like peeves us the most is when people say, well, I don't like the color red, you know, or like, you know, that's an ugly button, right? And that kind of conversation is never really helpful. But once you start shifting this conversation towards what people were actually trying to accomplish, you start to realize like, hey, you know, this thing exists, it was built, and most likely it's not completely accidental, right? Like it wasn't just like, boom, like wave the magic wand, let's just put text. Somebody thought things through. Somebody put things in that particular order, in that particular way. Somebody chose the headline, somebody chose the words, somebody chose the calls to action. Why, right? What's the reason? What were those goals? If you can get to that kind of a conversation, you start to actually understand how to make things work and fix them. So we did that, right? So we went through the entire website frame by frame, then we broke it all up, kind of going through this. You can see a little bit more of basically what that looks like, right? So the navigation, the calls to action, that it's the buttons, what goals it's accomplishing, very hands-on sticky note type of process. We also did the same with the competitors, right? So this is another kind of important thing that we did was like, hey, you guys aren't brand new into this market. And assuming that your competitors are also not complete idiots, they also probably have a strategy for why they chose to do things in that way. So rather than just having a conversation like, oh, we don't like those guys, or like those guys are complete bullshit, why did they choose to do this? Why are your competitors, for instance, using a black background? Why are they using an illustration style? Why are they doing all of these like super bright visuals? Why are these guys doing this section? Why is it super heavy on these elements, right? So we actually had them go through and deconstruct the competitors' websites to try to understand what was the strategy, not whether you like it or you don't. We don't really care. I mean, we care a little bit, right? Whether they like something or don't, it helps us as designers orient, right? But what we wanted to do was, again, shifting, looking at your competitors who are also in this exact same market. What was their strategy? What were they trying to accomplish? Why do you think they went this way? And what do you think you understand about their customers who are potentially your customers, right? Potentially your customers are all the same customers of these different organizations. What does it seem that they know about them? What do they think is important for your customers, right? So how do you kind of begin to move towards this basically proto-personas, right? This is a way to use competitor research to begin to generate sketches for personas, customer pains, that kind of stuff. So we did this. After that, what we did was we figured out, so basically, what do we understand were the key different strategies that the competitors were using? And we had the team kind of split up and say, okay, if you guys only cared about this one strategy, right? Like let's say speed of information, what would the website look like, right? Forget everything else. Your goal is to kind of accomplish something as fast as possible, right? The other thing, one of the other strategies was like super heavy on social proof, getting people inspiration. Great. If that was the only thing you cared about, what would that look like, right? So we kind of pulled this, and the goal of this was to just get different visions from the actual team, right? We were helping them to draw these, but the team themselves was actually doing the wireframing. They were actually coming up and sketching this out, but with an eye of very specific kinds of strategies, which we then kind of went through and then figured out what did we like about this strategy, right? Like what was really working? When we chose only speed as the main context factor, what really worked, right? When we chose only this, what really worked? And then we then recombined that with the team into one final thing, saying out of all of these different approaches and these different sketches that we did, what was really working about all of them? And if we had to then create something that takes the best out of all of those different approaches, what might that look like? And then as you can see, the team over here like did some live sketching and wireframing with the assistance of our designers to kind of get this realized. So this was the first part, right? This was like the participatory design part. You can see that we deconstructed not only the existing website, we deconstructed the competitor's website, we tried to understand strategies, and then we even started to reconstruct, right? We started to understand. And the goal of all of this reconstruction of this wireframing was also to really understand, even now, what do they want? What were their goals? What are the things that are most important to our clients as they're thinking, right? Once they have this eye for strategy, once they understand goals, once they've even started to understand customers, what are they kind of looking for, right? How do we understand that space? And then what we did after that session was that we went and we actually summarized all of the things that we learned. So we once again reviewed all of their post-its. We went through it as a team. Once again, it was this huge jumbled mess. And then we also pulled out from the competitors the things that we noticed that they really liked, the things that we noticed that they were talking about, why things were working, right? So in this, showing what will happen, giving people a walkthrough, right? Really saying not what this design is like, but what it's actually accomplishing, right? And we did that for a lot of the competitors, and we kind of analyzed all of that existing information. And once we did that, we started finding these really big themes, right? So this part is not to be skipped. Like, it's very easy to just go and just jump straight into like, boom, this is what the client said that they wanted. They sketched this wireframe, right? So participatory design doesn't necessarily mean that what the client says they want, you then just go and make, right? You're still just using that as a tool to understand what they're trying to accomplish in what particular way, right? We still are then going, we're still digesting all of that information. We're still finding these big themes, right? We're doing a thematic analysis on all of that information. And in this case, we found 7 big themes. We then packaged all of that back into kind of like a summary report, sent it to the client to say, hey, off of our session, this is what we understood were the most important things. This is what the website must contain. It's just one more additional kind of check to make sure, did we understand correctly, right? And they're like, yeah, this is everything we want. You know, this is great. This is perfect. And then what does the next part look like? Again, I can't show what we've actually created, but then we then go and recreate new wireframes, right? We start re-sketching based off of what we understood from the competitors, what we gathered that they wanted to kind of create this new idea. And then we threw this all into testing, right? So this is the kind of process. This is basically what it looked like and what the final outcome was. I can say in this particular case, when the clients finally saw the design, it was like immediately like, oh my God, you guys understood exactly what we wanted, right? And I could say like, I mean, well, how could we not if we spent so much time literally designing together, looking at competitors, figuring out what you wanted? That's the advantage, right? And the advantage is that they then saw that. They understood why these things are here. They can see how it comes back to what they were sketching. They can see how it comes back to the things that they liked about competitor strategies. They can understand which pain points we're targeting in the customers because they were with us the entire part of the way. We still ended up designing, right? But there was such a heavy input from the client that this time it felt like we were just designing together with them. So at the end of the day, I can't guarantee that that's going to produce better results, but I do believe that the chances are, of course, higher. It doesn't matter what you do in the design room, you still have to put something to market, and you still have to see, you know, does the real world agree with all of the ideas and thoughts that were there, right? But again, this kind of a whole process, deconstructing, reconstructing, working with the client ensures that there's a much higher level of understanding. And ultimately a chance for, I think, better design that people get excited about and then want to implement. So thank you. I'm only 11 minutes over. But yeah, you can say hello to me. That's my email. Yay, we made it to the end. And yeah, that's it. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Rostislav. Thank you so much. That's okay that you went over a little bit, but your presentation was super insightful and full with the information. I'm so glad that you finished your speech, like telling that much insights what you are doing. Like, I must say that I also try to include clients in meetings and get to understand better their products. But what you just showed, it's like whole another level. Like, I will definitely take your tips and try to include in my work as well. Thank you so much for this. Thank you. We have a lot of questions for you, like so many questions. I think we will try to answer as much as possible, and maybe move a little bit our networking session. But this was great. Let's start with the first question from Olga. How do you find balance between leading the client towards better design decisions and designing to the expectations what client has already imagined what she needs? So yeah. So how do you find the balance between these two?
I think, it's a very good question, because it's like a very hard thing. One of the things that I want to say is that clients don't always know what they want, right? And they might be imagining something, but I think one of the benefits of kind of going through this kind of a process is that we're still essentially interviewing the clients throughout this entire period, right? And that's why that whole last bit, where even after the clients like designed this and they were like, oh great, like we sketched this out, we're kind of happy, we still went through and then as a team started to analyze everything that we learned, things that we even noticed and observed the clients reacting to try to understand, well, they're saying things in the same way that people will tell you, like, never believe users when they say they want something, right? You always have to actually factor that in with things that you observe. It's this constant like juggling between, okay, this is what they're saying they're wanting, but how do we actually understand both what we know is best, but we also understand what they actually need? And I think if you're having this conversation much more around goals, much more around needs, it becomes a lot easier also to find that balance, to have those kind of conversations with your client when you say, okay, cool, you're saying that you want this thing, but as far as I understand, it's because this is the goal you're after. These are other ways to kind of get this goal. And they're like, oh, great, not always, but that's, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like finding, talking a bit more and then finding this balance, that would be the best. Yeah. Then we have a question from Christians that's also interesting for me as well. How do you avoid miscommunication between designers and developers? In the beginning, you mentioned that not everything is designed as a designer has drawn.
Yeah, I think that's tough, but similar to what I think Irina was saying about having different sessions and workshops where people are actually together, also where they're making together. I think it's so easy to just have silos, right? Where it's like you think that you just hand over, but the more people are actually spending time together, the more they're communicating, the more they're working, and the more they're creating together. So for me, and also over communication is lately one of my mottos. It's better to over communicate than it is to under communicate, as long as you're doing it in a smart kind of a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Those extra talks could definitely bring some insight for designers to understand what developers actually doing. We have a question from Irina. What are the drawbacks of participatory design?
Yeah, so there are also a lot of drawbacks. One is that you get too influenced by what the client actually thinks that they want. You can start to feel like, well, shit, how do I stop them? They're currently going in like the worst possible direction. Now it's like they just made this thing and they're feeling so proud, and I need to tell them like, no, dude, like that's just not going to work. So the drawbacks are obviously that, right? Like the client's having a much more active role, and they also start to feel in some ways, especially when you're doing it, I guess, relatively well, that they also have some kind of superpowers. But you really shouldn't forget that you're still kind of like the master of this particular skill set and this tool, right? Like, so it's understanding that there are still boundaries and really being able to communicate that. So I think that's one of the biggest drawbacks, right? Is that clients start to feel like so much ownership, but that's really only if you let them. You have to kind of balance with saying like, okay, this is, well, which is why that whole summary that we, for instance, how we tackled it in this project was that after they did all of that sketching, we did this whole analysis and then we sent it back to them. We didn't include their designs. We showed them what they did and we said, hey, this is what we understood was important, right? Kind of like letting them know like those designs are great, but again, moving it back towards the goal. This is what you actually want to accomplish. This is what needs to be in the redesign. So I think kind of having different methods like that definitely helps to avoid at least that particular pitfall.
Absolutely. We have a question from Raitis. How can you tell that challenge has been framed well?
When you go to the market. Yeah, I mean, it's really tough. So part of the reason that I say it's really tough is because there's always room for more research, right? Like you can research until the end. Like you can go to the point where you'll never actually even touch design because you're like, oh, but we still don't know. There's still all of these edge cases. There's still all of these like different situations. And that's where I say it's like ultimately in this model, right, where you're going from like deconstruction to reconstruction, like you as the designer are still choosing how to do something. And I think that inherently needs to remind us that it doesn't matter at some point how poorly something is framed, because it just gets to a matter of risk, right? The more you do it, the less risk in theory that you have, but you have to measure according to the problem, like, is that worth it? And so sometimes you just have to jump with your gut and your intuition and then just do that loop many, many times. So it really doesn't matter how well or poorly you framed the design problem, as long as you give yourself the chance to iterate through those loops many, many times and kind of keep getting feedback. But yeah, going to market is the best test.
Absolutely. And then maybe this, we will take this as a last question because we're really running out of time. Also a little bit related to the previous question, what would be your argument for high-level executives who fear presenting the most amazing project in a very early prototyping testing phase to potential users?
Meaning early prototyping and the executives don't want to show high fidelity prototypes?
Yes.
I tend to be in agreement with those executives, honestly. I think that that's, if you have those kind of executives, I think that's really, really good. And that means you've got like a good team. Partly because if you're talking about super early level, what you're trying to do is you're really just trying to understand the landscape. You're trying to understand, do we have the right goals? Are we tackling the right problems? Are we solving the right pain points? And at that point, a lot of what you want to do is you want to get deep into understanding how people are thinking and feeling. And there's a massive risk when you show people something that seems so real. That's when they start telling you like, oh, I don't like the color blue, right? Or like, I don't like the color red. You want to get them comfortable enough to feel that they can actually riff on something. So a lot of things that kind of experienced researchers do is that even when they're showing kind of high fidelity prototypes, they'll use kind of like a phrase like, oh yeah, so like we had an intern and he threw this together in about 30 minutes, you know, so like, don't worry. And then that way people feel like, oh, okay, cool, I can tell you actually what I think. So like, yeah, so I'm in agreement. I think it's like there's a lot of risk with super high fidelity prototypes in early stage testing because people become afraid to hurt your feelings. And that's not what you want. You don't want your potential customers to say, oh yeah, no, that's really nice. Totally. It's exactly what I need. I'd love it, right? Because you worked so hard on it. So that's the thing. Yeah,
absolutely. I must agree with you. I got acceptance from my colleagues that we can still answer our last 3 questions. So I will ask you questions. So a question from Alina. Who do you invite to participate in the workshops when doing these with the clients? Who is coming into these workshops?
Yeah, so also similar to what Irina mentioned, we want the cross-functional team, right? We want the team that's actually going to be involved in doing this, in making this, that have kind of like a stake. Because one of the biggest like mistakes is that, you know, everybody kind of spends a lot of time kind of making these designs, and you left out like a really key player, and he's like, well, no one asked me, right? And then the whole project gets shut down, and then you run in this thing. So one of the best things to do is really to kind of defer also to the clients if they kind of know. But we typically invite somebody from the executive team who's in charge of this project, the one who's pushing it, the one who's most passionate about making this happen, and then the actual team from all of the different departments that were a part of it, right? Because you want all of their different insights. You'll never know, like it's very easy to look at something and be like, okay, this is really bad, we need to get rid of it, without understanding actually why it's there, right? Maybe there's some like legacy or some historical reason, or like the code is factored in such a way that it has to be done in this way, and like you won't discover those things. So yeah, cross-functional team as much as possible.
Absolutely. Variety of opinions. Yeah, great. I agree. I totally agree with you. The question from artists, what about the pushbacks if from, wait, I need to rephrase this. What about like pushbacks when designers hired? So a client says, I hired you to solve the problem so I can continue to do my own stuff, and I don't need to participate in this mumbo jumbo touchy workshops. So what to do in this kind of situation when a client says like this?
Yeah, participatory design is not the only way to design, right? It's a particular method, and you still have to understand there has to be some level of trust on behalf of the clients. You know, there is still this kind of mentality of like, we hired you, you guys are the experts. Like, why are we being involved? That's what we're paying you. I'm not paying you to also waste my time doing this. You definitely do get that a lot, and so you always hybrid, right? So the question is, you know, if you have a super excited client, then great, yeah, get them in, do that whole workshop. If not, figure out, well, what do we need, right? So like in this particular case, I can't say that the client was just like, yes, we're designing together the entire step of the way. We're like, great, but they can probably spare 5 hours, right? They can probably spare 1 day, maybe 2 days spread throughout the week. And you figure out what is the most important thing for us to understand, right? To kind of get them to work through with us, and how do we basically adjust to their space. So, and sometimes not every project, right? So this is also what I said about like risk, right? So, you know, what is the level of risk that's involved in the, like, why is the client trying to solve this in the first place? What are they doing? And what's the danger of doing a shit job, right? If it's like a really shit job, is it like the business is going to break, and then your name as a designer or the agency who made this is going to be like, that's it, like no one will ever work with you? Or is it kind of like pretty low risk, right? Like this is just like a simple redesign, like it's fine, it's good enough to just apply best practices and kind of get it up to par, right? It's not, this isn't a tool. It's not like as soon as you, like, what is that thing? It's like, if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. This isn't one of those situations, right? Like just knowing that participatory design, it's not always the tool that you want to use. So try to understand it. Will it be super helpful? Will it be super important? And then if it is, and you're still getting pushback, then what's the minimum, right? How do I work until I can build trust with this client, that they trust me that this is something that's going to work in the long run over time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, deciding what is the best in this case. Yeah, absolutely. And then the next question from Irina, a bit related to this question, but she's more interested about end users. So an example, you do a participatory design with a client, although I thought it should be done with a potential user, existing extreme users, novice users. In this case, how do you know client is aware of user problems of the service or product that you are testing?
For sure. Yeah, so there's participatory design with the client, and there's definitely participatory design with the end users. In this particular case, all of those wireframes and designs then went through a round of user testing. We kind of did like hour-long interviews with at least 10 different people to try to understand kind of, is it working, is it not, made a bunch of changes, and are kind of repeatedly going through those cycles. So that's always a must, right? It's like, it's never enough just like that we, the people who are not actually going to be using this product, are going to completely decide that we know everything, right? Even if you can reverse engineer your personas from your competitors, that still isn't a substitute for actually going out and talking to the actual people who are going to do this. But you want to, what was the question again? Was repeat it again? I think I lost.
Why, if when you're doing these participatory design workshops, is like client aware of end user needs and their thoughts and comments on their website?
So yeah, okay. And then what I wanted to say was, yeah, so in this particular case, that's how we chose to approach it. Part of that was the fact that this was like a new product offering, and what we're trying to do is just put a prototype into the market, right? So coming from like the startup scene, you want to make something, right? Like there's a general understanding of an opportunity area. Let's make something, let's prototype, and then let's bring it to market, and then we can adjust and temper, right? So the goal here was to kind of move fast, which is why we took a lot of existing information. If it was a much different thing, right? If it was like a whole different project, yes, we would start probably with participatory design, particularly with users. So a lot of design for government, a lot of service design, because they're particularly designing processes for citizens. That always happens, right? You do workshops with community groups, you figure out how things want to be, because it's a different sphere in that case. But bringing in the customer voice was critical. So we went out, we did a whole lot of research. The client watched all of the interviews with us. We analyzed it together to figure out, we summarized it all. And now they're like really gung-ho. They're like, great, we need to do this research for all of our other things, which kind of caught us off guard. We didn't expect them to be so excited about getting this voice of customer. But yeah.
So it also depends on the project, basically, like if you feel like that we don't need to have all sites in, and that
and later. This is what I said, like in design, like it doesn't matter where you start because you're never finished, right? So once you start, you're still, you know, like it's a loop, right? Any situation that you change becomes a new situation that you have to change, right? You change things by making. You discover new needs, you create new opportunities. With those new opportunities, you create new problems. So a lot of the time, it doesn't matter, right? It just matters like how quickly you're going through these loops. So you're still bringing it in. In this case, we started with actually getting this product out to market faster and then bringing it in this way. In another situation, we would have started with customers and then worked backwards towards figuring out, hey, what might this be?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that was it from the questions. Thank you so much. It took a bit longer, but we have a lot of good feedback that people are saying that you have an amazing presentation, very critical view of all this, and thank you so much for sharing like the process. And we actually cannot wait to see like the website that you are now working on. So
Me too.
Looking forward.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. That was it from our speakers. Thank you so much, Irina and Rostislav. Thank you for your sharing your experiences. We cannot wait to connect with you on LinkedIn and other social media platforms to follow you and see what you are cooking up and what websites are you launching and products you are creating. That's really, really great. All right, so we have some final things that we actually need to share with you to our fellow community. We have some announcements that we would like to share. We wanted to share again that we have our social media platforms on Facebook. You probably already follow us. We recently created the LinkedIn page. You can also follow us there. And starting from February, we will try to activate our Twitter account. So there you can stay tuned with our events and other announcements that we will come up in time. Then we have really great news for you that we have created very first Latvian digital product and service design community in Slack. In chat, you are probably receiving already the link to our Slack group. If you skip the link, then don't worry, we will send that out in later today or tomorrow from Eventbrite. So you will get all the links that also the speakers mentioned. So all of that information you will receive after. But you are now very first ones to join our Slack group. Remaining community members will join maybe tomorrow when we will share that in social media channels. And of course, if you feel like that you would like to volunteer and help us out on doing some designs or help on social media or host the next event, well, feel free to reach us out on our email or also on social media if it's easier for you, and say that you would like to volunteer and help us out on some activities. We have prepared our very last warm-up session, where I'm asking now Christianis to grab the screen again and get some last warm-up. That's not a warm-up anymore, but last activity on. And yeah.
So yes, hello. So our last activity would be actually getting your feedback, and this activity won't take more than 5 minutes. I promise you that. So one thing to say is, yeah, we are here to actually listen to your feedback and improve accordingly. So yeah, feel free to actually speak your mind. And well, one learning I could say from Rotislav is that, well, yeah, this was created by some interns, so feel free to speak your mind. So, and yeah, get back to your phones and enter menti.com, the code you see above, and start answering few of the questions. I'll be setting up some timers for each of the questions, so 30 seconds for each, and yeah. To the next question. So first, overall, how satisfied are you with this event? The last, yes, the last answers are getting in. So let's continue to the next question. And this is about the first talk. Irina's talk about remote workshop magic, how we do it at Prezi. And here I would like you to rate both the presentation itself and then also the relevance to you of that specific topic, going from 0 to 10. And also for this one, let's put 30 seconds on. Okay, thank you. And let's continue to our second talk, which was Rotislav's talk about how to and why you should involve clients in the design process. And again, 30 seconds for this one. So the last answers are getting in. Thank you. And the next one, yes, leave some comments for the speakers here. You can write them in free format. Can have multiple ones, and for this one, let's set up a minute, as you might want to express your gratitude or something you learned, or, well, feel free to write whatever you feel like. Okay, nice to see comments flying in. Let's maybe extend it for another half a minute. So the last comments. Okay, let's continue to the next slide or next question. Yes, sorry. Yeah, this is the next one. Where did you first hear about this meetup? So this would help us to understand better which are the places where most of you heard about us or are getting information about the newest event and what's happening. Okay, last answers. And for the last question, what would you like to hear about in the next user experience, user interface rig meetup events? And maybe you have some speakers you'd want to suggest for it. And yes, it's a free format text, so similarly like previous, just write in your comments and what you would like to hear. And, well, maybe some speakers you would want to refer, or some themes you'd want to speak yourself. Okay. Say rather personal request. It's nice. Okay, best UI practices. Fuck up nights. So yeah, the fail stories, I assume. Send fail dissections. And I can remind that actually this whole questions and answers would be also shared later on. So and definitely used by us to tailor the next meetups towards your needs. Okay, let's have another minute as I see many comments are flying in. Okay, the last 10 seconds. Okay, great. So thank you very much for your feedback and your comments. Once again, these activities were sponsored by Beyond UX Digital, and yeah, thank you for your participation in these activities again. So switching back to you, Zane.
Yes, thank you so much, Christiane, for having this sneaky feedback session so we could get all the good and bad evaluations what you saw on this very first online meetup that we are having this year. All right, we still thank those 49 people who stayed with us, because you are now hearing something really great from us. Our next event, Save Your Date, will be on March 28th, and we will try to hold it in Latvian language. So save your date, and we will of course release the information afterwards, but now we just have booked this day for us to prepare, and we will look into your feedback, and I guess it will be also online event, but who knows what situation will bring. But we will read through your feedbacks and see what we could give to you as speakers and content that we can discuss, all of us. All right, so as I was talking a lot about some kind of networking session, so what oh, before that, if there is anyone who would like to say something, raise your hand, and we would like to hear from you if someone has something to say. Do we have anybody? I think I don't see the screen if I'm sharing. I'm just gonna look at your pictures now and see if anybody is raising hand. Nobody's raising hand. Okay, so nobody has anything to say for us. Okay, then let's continue. So the networking session that I was saying. Okay, so has anybody attended to a digital networking session where you could actually be in the same room with different people and talk with them? I hope someone has, but I also hope that someone has this as a first time experience. So actually we would like to know who would like to stay with us in this networking session. I know our speakers are happy to join and perhaps answer to the questions that you didn't have chance to ask, or maybe I didn't set the questions in the live session. So you could join and ask these speakers directly the questions. So if you could write in a chat, I'm in for this, or just I'm in, We would like to count how many people would like to join, and then we will spread you through different rooms, or we will put everybody in one room based on how many people want to go in this networking session and have some interesting experience. So please write who's in for a networking. Because then the remaining people, I will say goodbye. And I actually wanted to say thanks to everyone who joined today and didn't have any technical problems. You are here, you were able to join us and listen to our amazing speakers. And I hope next event is even bigger and more people comes in. Also the ones who didn't attend it. So let's hope for that. Really can't wait to see all of you in real life, but situation as it is, we need to do this online. And yeah, how is looking in a chat? Okay, we have some people saying that are in. Okay, so my colleagues, how does it look like? How our networking will look like?
It looks like actually Zen is it except Rostislav. Everybody else is quite tired.
Okay. That's fine. We are a little bit 20 minutes late with this, but that's fine. Of course, people have plans and it's really late. It's totally understandable. So we could hop in.
We can continue in async way in Slack in our new fresh community, and I guess we are reachable there. Speakers as organizers, I guess, yeah, we can do it like this. Just not to make people struggle in like one networking, but it's too late.
Yeah, no, it's totally understandable, of course, with the situation that you don't understand how to do this online. Like it's not like actual thing that you are seeing a person and perhaps shaking a hand. Of course, it's different, and I totally understand. We could maybe try this some other time, but of course, as you, Irina, just said, we will meet in a Slack, and there we can reach out to each other and ask questions and answer to each other. So you can reach speakers, you can reach us organizers, so that's no problem. Okay, great. Then I must say thank you for today, for a wonderful evening. See you on social media, see you on Slack, and yeah, and I hope to see you all on the next event as well. Thank you. Then bye for now. Bye-bye.